Welcome to episode 10 of series 2 of Dalek Bumps Question Time. Queen Giratina asks, what is your favourite Dalek episode novelisation? In the previous Question Time video I discussed some of my favourite Dalek novelisations, mentioning Day of the Daleks, Remembrance of the Daleks and Dalek, the top 3 Dalek episode novelisations we've had so far. The Day of the Daleks novelisation expands greatly on the story and adds several scenes to flesh out the plot a bit, as well as add more Dalek action. The Remembrance of the Daleks novelisation is fantastic, and is a must-read for fans of the story as it delves into expanded detail on almost every plot point. And the Dalek novelisation is a great round-off to the Rob Shearman Dalek trilogy of Jubilee, the Dalek TV story, and now the Dalek novelisation. Each 3 similar yet individually distinct iterations of the same core idea, taken in very different directions. Other Dalek novelisations that I would recommend include the Genesis of the Daleks novelisation, the 2 Eric Saywood novelisations, and the novelised forms of the lost episode The Daleks Master Plan. 1701D asks, what are your top 5 favourite Dalek audio stories from Big Finish's monthly adventures range? Going specifically off the monthly adventures range, my top 5 favourite Big Finish Dalek plays are Enemy of the Daleks, The Curse of Davros, The Juggernauts, Jubilee, and Order of the Daleks. But there are lots of other close contenders like The Apocalypse Element, Terra Firma, Patient Zero, and We Are the Daleks. Davros is another top tier audio, though it doesn't actually feature the Daleks, and while they aren't part of the main range, it would be amiss to not mention Blood of the Daleks, The Elite, Out of Time, Restoration of the Daleks, and The Triumph of Davros. Murkmaxis has 2 questions, which are: Question 1. How do you rate the Chibnall era Dalek stories compared to the others in New Who? Although there were many issues with his era as a whole, Chibnall did a good job with the Daleks as far as I'm concerned. In fact, he actually did a better job with them than Moffat did, returning to the Russell T Davies era style of Dalek story that depicts them as ruthless exterminators rather than simply uses them for set dressing. On the whole, I'd rate Chibnall's Dalek stories in the middle tier of New Who Dalek stories, better than the likes of Journey's End, Asylum of the Daleks, and The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, but not quite as good as my favourite New Who Dalek stories. Each Chibnall era Dalek story has something to offer: an interesting lone Dalek stuck without a casing, a modern spin on the Dalek Civil War idea that both Classic Who and Big Finish had also had a go of, and a back-to-basics Dalek runaround in an enclosed location. Each of these stories managed to weave a decent subplot into the narrative. They all feature some great Dalek scenes and dialogue, and they all work as standalone stories that have excellent rewatch value. While there were aspects of Chibnall's era that I really didn't like, there were also aspects of his era that I liked a lot, and his Dalek stories are without a doubt among the best aspects of his era. There are 3 contenders for my favourite Moffat era Dalek story. The first is Victory of the Daleks. I really liked the first half, with the Ironsides pretending to be war robots serving Churchill's cabinet during World War II. That stuff is excellent. And while the introduction of the paradigm does completely derail the story, I can look back fondly on this design despite the clear missteps taken in the production of this episode. The second contender is a potentially controversial one, and that's The Big Bang, the finale of Series 5. While this episode's status as a Dalek story could be met with contention, I maintain that the episode positions the Stone Dalek as its primary antagonist, therefore it is technically a Dalek story. This simple runaround involving a stone Dalek stalking the Doctor and companion through a dark, empty museum is fantastic, and while this idea doesn't make up the entire episode, the scenes of the Daleks that we see in this story are all excellent. The final contender is Into the Dalek. I genuinely like the story of Rusty. The uses of practical effects in the episode are excellent, there are some great references to Classic Who, and there are some fantastic Dalek action scenes. The story isn't perfect by any means, but it is without a doubt the best Dalek story of the Moffat era. It's also worth giving a shout out to the handful of fairly well executed Dalek cameos in the Moffat era, most notably the Time War scenes of The Day of the Doctor, the Mavellan War scenes of the pilot, and Rusty's appearance in Twice Upon a Time. And finally, Hyperlethal42 asks, what is it about the Daleks that makes them so powerful? Tenacity. The Daleks' greatest strength is their never-ending commitment to achieving their goals by any means necessary, and this is a key aspect of what makes them so powerful. They are relentless, constantly trying to expand their regime, construct more ships and weapons, and conquer more planets. Even when they are beaten back to just a single Dalek unit, the Daleks are still a formidable threat that will stop at nothing to further the Dalek cause. Throughout their many iterations, the Daleks have been fighting a constant battle for survival, navigating temporal wars and paradoxes to ensure that their race survives. And this relentless tenacity has led them to develop all manner of defences to further their power. The ability to exterminate, the capability of flight, the implementation of powerful force fields, the use of advanced ships and technologies, all furthering their war machine. The pure essence of the Daleks is a continuous, powerful and unwavering devotion to their cause that clearly sets out their ultimate goals and drives the Daleks to attain them no matter what. And that concludes yet another episode of Dalek Bumps Question Time. Which Dalek stories from the Moffat and Chibnall eras are your favourite? What is your favourite Dalek audio story that you have listened to? Have you read any of the excellent Dalek episode novelizations? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.